I'm going to record this part so I can have a video of this training. I have a couple other ones, but some things have changed, so don't worry about that. I'm just going to use it send it to people if they need a refresher on how to create an auction.
Okay.
I'm not recording you specifically. What I'm saying,
Okay.
just the training process. So what we do, our first step, as you could guess, for creating a new auction is clicking on the new auction button up here in the left-hand corner. And this is going to take us to the auction details page. So this is not regarding here the items yet. It is just the details of the auction. So what we're going to name the auction, where the auction is located, what the sales tax rate is, what the dates are, all that information we put in here on this page. Hello?
Hey.
We got 3?
I'm just joining in, Chris.
Welcome. We just started the process for creating an auction, so you're just
perfect.
Perfect.
I'm on. Perfect. All right.
All right. So right now we're just on the details page, and we'll just go through this here line by line and just make sure you're aware of what everything does. First is your title. That's just the name of the auction. Don't go too overboard. You don't need to list every item that you have in your auction in your title. It's just this is what we have. Let's start with a sample title first. A lot of people will go with Mankato Consignment Auction number 1. That's kind of a pretty vague name that you could use. Next, we have our auction type. That you'll only have the option for standard, so you can just leave that as is. And then we have our categories. So these are the broad categories that the auction would fit into. You certainly can have more than one, but just make sure that they do make sense, because bidders can search on these categories for the auctions that are of interest to them. An example I like to use is you certainly could have a household and estate with collectibles and possibly coins and currency as well. So you can use more than one, but like I said, just make sure that they are relevant. And in our opinion, a push lawnmower does not necessarily mean that it's heavy equipment or farm machinery. So kind of make sure that they make sense for the auction or the items that you have within your auction. Moving down, we do have these 2 sections here, and I'm going to want you to pretend like they're not there, because you don't need to do anything with them. The first one is a passphrase, which actually puts a password on your auction. So no one would be able to find it or bid on it unless they knew the password, which they wouldn't know. So no real necessary reason to use that. The next one is image-based URL. So that will automatically populate for us once we save this page. So those 2 sections you can ignore completely. And we'll jump down to the description. And this is the description of the auction, or a basic synopsis of what this auction is. And if I jump to the all auctions list, I'll show you some examples of that. Here's one. Contains a lot of antique farm machinery equipment, 1 bottom plow, tractor. I don't think you really need to list everything, but if you can give a general overview of what people can expect once they get into the auction, you'll
so these
notice
are like
that.
Keywords.
Not necessarily. People don't really. It's not going to do anything as far as search. But if someone did see, there's farm machinery in this auction, and they wanted to see, well, it's an estate liquidation. The guy's lived here for 75 years. Well, he's probably got a lot of neat stuff. So you just want to give them some more info on that. Your primary way that you're going to get people to click into your auction are going to be these 5 photos. That's going to be your big selling point. So if you can't tell the whole story of what's in the auction, then that's when you're going to want to put some more information up here in the auction description. And I'll show you how you can choose those 5 featured items here a bit. So I'll just put in, this is a description, an auction description. So we have something in there. Scrolling down, you'll see our first tab here is the note section. That's primarily information you want to give bidders regarding your inspection or removal. So if it's call for an appointment to set up an inspection, or come to the back loading dock, or use the alley to get to the auction location, those are things you'd want to give them in the note section. Second is the terms. Now this is what bidders agree to before they bid on your auction. So we do have some standard terms that we'll paste in there for you. That's almost redundant because they do pretty much accept this when they sign up on the site, but pretty generic information, basically stating who's managing the auction, and at the very least what you'd want to do is include the payment types accepted for this auction. So if that's cash, check, credit card up to $5,000, wire transfers, whatever your terms are for the auction, you're going to want to make sure that you add those in here. And beyond that, this just states some pretty generic things that by bidding on the auction, they agree to the website terms, the as is, where is, disclaimer, buyer's premium, sales tax will be collected, 3-minute overtime, so nothing really groundbreaking there. And the nice thing is, if we go ahead and click save and use as a default for future auctions, you don't have to paste these in every time. They'll automatically pop up for you. And if you take a look around some other affiliate auctions in their terms, you'll see most of what they will add to this, and you're free to add to this, is regarding the removal. So payments required on the removal date, we can hold it up to 3 days after that time. We're going to charge a $10 storage fee, or whatever that your terms might be. So you want to give them that information here in the terms, and that is what they agree to before they bid on your auction. Next is shipping. This is another one that you can save and use as a default. So be as descriptive as you can, or you need to be. If you don't ship, certainly say that as well. If you only ship certain items, or if you want them to call before bidding in order to make sure that it can be shipped, all that information you want to give there. That'll help reduce the amount of phone calls you get. You certainly want to give them the information. If you have a standard shipping and handling cost of $7, and then it's going to be plus the shipping fee, those are things you want to disclose in the shipping tab. Scrolling down, we have our dates, so the auction schedule. We'll start with our start and end date. We can start it in the future, or we can hit start now. It's not necessarily going to start until we hit publish, but once we do, then it will go active. Otherwise, you can have it start on a future date. You do have full control over the ending date and time as well. Just be aware that there is an option here to close an auction at 7 in the morning. There is an AM and PM option, so you just want to be aware that you double check. You probably don't want an auction closing at 7 in the morning. Our most popular times are between 6 and 9 p.m. And most auctions usually run between 8 and 12, 8 to 14 days, depending on the auction. That's kind of the most popular date range. Certainly you'll have some that are shorter and longer, but that 8 to 12 days is kind of the area there. Next, we move on to the inspection. You can do by appointment only by clicking this button. And like I said, we did that. We'd want to put some information in the notes up here as far as how they can schedule that, if it's only on certain days that they can schedule that, all that information regarding how they can get it. Make an appointment to inspect. Otherwise, you can just have one date here. If I started it on the 22nd at 10 a.m., then I would end it on the 22nd at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. So this is a one-day time frame. You can always add more to it. And then same thing applies for the removal date. You just have a start and end date if you need to add more, or if you want to do it by appointment. If you only have a couple items, I would not recommend doing removal by appointment if you have more than 3 items on an auction. You just don't want to leave an open-ended removal, because then you'll see people waiting 7 days, 10 days. Try to give them, this is what they're agreeing to, that they're going to be there at the removal on the 28th from 10 to 6 p.m. Moving down, we have our closing rate. Now, this is how fast or slow the auction is going to close. Of course, there's going to be a 3-minute extended bidding for every item. That's so the closing rate isn't that important, but you certainly don't want to have an auction close too slowly, and you don't want to have it close too fast. So if you had 200 lots, you wouldn't want to close them all at 7:01 p.m. You want to stagger it out a little bit. And how this is listed right now is that the first 7 lots in this auction are going to close at 1 item per minute. So from 7 o'clock to 7:06, those first 7 lots are going to close. And then after that, they're going to close at 10 items per minute. So the use case for that is if you have 7 large items on the front of the auction and you want to slow it down a little bit. And then towards the end, you just have some smaller tools and hardware, things like that. Then you can do it at 10 items per minute or 5 items per minute, so it doesn't drag out 4 or 5, 6 hours long. For example, if I had 100 lots, it's all pretty similar stuff, similar lots, lot values. I'd probably just do 1, 1, and 5. In that way, the entire auction would wrap up in about 20 minutes, not including the auto extended overtime bidding. So, our recommendation is between 15 to 45 minutes, somewhere in that range. Certainly, if you have a larger auction, it's going to go much longer than that in some cases. If you have questions on it, what would be ideal, let me know. It's pretty straightforward, though, as far as what these options are to get the staggered closing. Moving down, you have your location. So this is the auction address. You can save those and use it as a future address as well. The phone number is the main contact number for your auction. That's going to show up in 3, 4, 5 different places, so make sure it's the right one. That will be on the bidder's invoices as well. Over here on the left-hand side, we have our sales tax rate. So this is the rate of the auction location. So and what we do is we break it into state, county, city, transport, excise, and miscellaneous. So that's nice because on that sales tax report that I showed you earlier, it will break it down into these categories for you, and it just makes it easier to file with the state. So the general state rate is 6.875. You guys might have a city rate of 0.5% to put you at 7.375. So just make sure that your total matches up. And that's going to be the amount charged on invoices.
Right. We have the 0.5% on the county tax.
County? Okay. So it would look like this.
And it comes out the same number, that 7.3.
Yeah. Yep. In all reality, if I put that up here, we'd get the same result, but the reports wouldn't be as valuable to you because you wouldn't see it broken down into the state and county rate.
Right.
And if you've submitted sales tax to the state, you know that they want you to break it out.
Yeah, if you save it that'd be perfect.
Yeah, yep. The idea is that it just makes that process easier for you.
Yep.
Up here is just your invoice footer. So this is what is going to show up on the bottom of your bidder invoice. A cool thing that I've seen some affiliates do is they'll put a cell phone number on there and say, text when you're on your way. Just gets people to kind of give you a general idea of when they're coming. But you can put anything you want down there.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. I do that with the discount store I'm running at the moment.
Oh, yeah. Yep. You're probably only going to get 20% of people that'll do it, but still better than nothing.
Oh, yeah. It's nice to have that.
Mm-hmm. Especially with larger items when there's some logistical hurdles.
Yeah.
You kind of want to make sure you don't want 6 trucks showing up at the same time, and you have to move all this big stuff around. It kind of can turn into a mess real quick.
Definitely.
This button here is just automate invoices. It's going to be checked for you. Just leave it as it is. That just means after the auction ends, invoices are going to be created and sent out to the winning bidders. So that's the result that we want. And then up here we have our bid increments, which are hard-coded in. These are pretty standard at the moment. So you don't have the ability to adjust those right now.
Okay.
And that is about it. That's everything on this page. We don't have to fill it all out right away. We can always go down to the bottom here and click on Save Draft, and we can come back to this page and add to it or change it later. So
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and do that. Click on Save Draft, and now if I go to our dashboard, we'll see in our draft auctions it's available, and also in our all auctions. So it's available on both pages, and how we get into that auction is we just click into the ID or the title. So this will take us into the auction that we're working on, and you'll always know which auction you're in because it's going to list it up here in the upper right-hand corner. So we're in sample title, and it's in draft status, and the ID is 13449. You'll see that in the URL of the auction. That ID is always going to be up there. And then if you ever have questions for us, it's always useful to include that ID so we know which auction you're talking about. You'll also notice this little drop-down menu up here, and this has different pages within the auction that we're working in. So we'll start with the auction stats page. This is going to take us to, it's not going to show us anything yet because the auction isn't active, but once it is active, this is where you're going to see bidding information, how many people are watching each item, how many bidders are participating, what the total bid amount is, all that good stuff as far as how your auction is performing at this point. One thing you'll notice up here is this changed a little bit as far as how it looked on the previous page. And the only reason for that is the previous page is made, we moved that to a more mobile-friendly style. This page will eventually be that as well. But this is the old page at this point. So those same buttons that were in the drop-down are going to be here, but they're just going to be static buttons. So same information is always going to be in the upper right-hand corner. It just might look a little bit different depending on what page you're in. So sorry if that's confusing at this point, but we're just kind of in the development of getting all the pages on the auction side to be mobile friendly so you can work on an auction from your phone easier and access what you need to. The next button up here is our preview button. And this takes us to a preview of the auction. So we don't have any lots created yet, so there's not a whole lot to look at, but the idea here is you can look at the auction exactly how bidders would see it before it goes live. So you'll have that option to make sure and do spot checks to make sure everything looks the way that you want it to. The next button is our edit auction, and that takes us back to that details page. You can always get back in here to make changes to the auction details. And then we have our lot list. So this is where we create lots within an auction. You'll see that there's a table here available that'll show you which lots are created. We don't have anything yet, but once we start creating them, they'll start popping up on that list. The biggest thing to recognize here as far as auction creation is that the process for creating your descriptions and the process for uploading your images are two separate processes. So you'll do one first and then the other. My recommendation, at least to start, is to start off by creating your descriptions first and then upload your images second. And that'll make sense here as we go through this and start creating some lots. Now that might be a little bit counterintuitive to what you might be used to as far as like a Craigslist post where you create the description and upload the images all at the same time. And the reason for that is our system's built to account for mass creation of lots. Because we're not usually selling one item at a time. It's usually 100, 150, 200 lots. So that's the way that we've developed it. So what we'll do is we'll create our first lot description. And how we do that is we just go over here to the new lot button. And it's going to take us into another one of those fill in the blank pages. So we'll go through every field here. you start with your lot number. Typically, you'd start with lot number 1, but for this training purpose, I'm just going to start with lot 17. You move down to your title. Let's go with a 2005 Chevy truck. Just a basic synopsis of what you're selling. Below that, you have your starting price. Most people start at $2, which is my recommendation. Start it low. Doesn't matter where it starts. It only matters where it ends.
I think I got kicked out. Yeah, back.
Who's talking?
Cash.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I thought I got kicked out.
Were you, could you hear everything yet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, yeah, I'm showing you back in. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm. 17, yeah, lot number 17.
All right, great. So yeah, you got your starting price here. If this auction was active and we were editing this item, we would see where that current bid price was as well. If a lot does have a reserve, it does need to be entered in here before the auction goes active. So just make sure we don't add reserves after an auction goes active. They have to be placed in there prior to that point. You can always go in and edit a lot, and if you do have a reserve on an item, say we have this $3,000 reserve, we could always come in and lower it. So at any point you can lower a reserve, but you just can't raise it.
Oh, okay.
You'll also notice if this was an active auction, and say current bid here was at $2,500, a little option is going to pop up here that says lower to current reserve price, or I'm sorry, current bid price. And if we click on that, it's actually going to say, it's going to send out a notice to that bidder stating that the reserve has been lowered and they are now in the lead. So you do have the option to lower it to the current bid price. The only caveat to that is the buyer at that point is not legally obligated to purchase because they were initially told that the reserve was not met. So it's almost like a second chance option. What you're hoping for in that situation is that more bids come in after people see that the reserve's been met and the thing is going to sell. But we have had situations where a guy bid on a boat for $1,000. The reserve was $1,200. He bid 5 days ago. He went out and bought a boat, and then the auction's about to end, and the seller says, let's let it go. But he already bought a boat, so he doesn't have any need for the one that he initially bid on. So that's one of the reasons why we do not force purchase upon that bidder if the reserve was lowered on top of them. The description here is the main items of a lot. So if we were selling a 2005 Chevy truck, we'd go with our make, model, year, VIN, all the details you'll put in here in your description. And you'll see you do have some formatting options up here as far as bullet points, numbers, different things like that if you want to make it look fancy. Now as far as what's required, these fields that we just went through, these are the only requirements in order to create a lot. Obviously, if you don't have a reserve, you just leave it at 0. But if I wanted to, I could go down and save this and be done with lot 17. But you'll notice down here at the bottom there are some other options as well. The first being the option to embed a YouTube video, very popular. If it moves, drives, my recommendation, you might as well create a video and upload it. All you have to do is get it into YouTube, grab the URL, put it in here, and it'll be embedded in your lot. You can also do a PDF. So if you had a user manual or something like that, you could upload that as well to be attached to a lot. Below this is our keyword categories. Now these are the keywords that are actually useful as far as site search. So if I was selling this 2005 Chevy truck, I would probably start out a little bit broader and go with vehicle. Then I'd probably narrow it down to Chevy and truck. That'd give us a pretty good base as far as what categories are in this lot that we're selling. And if we have Chevy in our categories and in our title, when someone does search for Chevy on the site, that lot's going to show up towards the top of the list because it is weighted based on what categories you're using. Contrary to what you might do in a Craigslist post, that's not an area where you're going to want to put in Dodge, Ford, everything else that under the sun, because you do want it to be relevant. But you can be vague as far as truck and vehicles. So, if people are searching for those things, they're likely to show up in those searches. But if they're searching for a Dodge and a Chevy pops up, that's not ideal for the user experience. Item class here, you'll see it'll default to default, and at this point we're not really leveraging this a whole lot. We will down the road, but you can leave this as default for the moment. Quantity, be aware this does change bidding to times the money bidding. So if I did a quantity of 10 and I had a starting price of $2, the first bid would actually be 10 times 2 or $20. And for the most part, I do not recommend using quantity. I would almost 100% of the time leave it at 1. If you're selling multiples of something, just state it in the description. If I was selling 10 chairs, I would state this is a lot of 10 chairs. The bidders are going to react accordingly and bid accordingly. So what we see with that times the money bidding is people don't understand it. It's almost more of a live auction scenario that was used, and just doesn't transfer over that well to all buyers in an online auction. But it is there as an option. Below this is our photo count. Now that's an area that you don't have to worry about. Just leave that as 0 at this point. It's primarily used for a separate system that we don't use anymore, so just pretend like that's not there. You'll see that every item that you create is going to be defaulted to yes on the is taxable checkbox. Most items that we sell in Minnesota are taxable. There are certain items that are not. Clothing is one of them, some food items as well. But if you do have one of those that is just plain non-taxable, you would deselect the is taxable box. But if that is checked, it's going to, on the invoice, it's going to charge that rate that we put in the auction details. So 7.7 or 375% will be charged to this lot. And then lastly here we have our seller. So we created that seller before. So if this lot belonged to our test seller, it would automatically pull the commission rate that we've assigned to that seller. So that was the straight 20%. If we had, if this was that Chevy truck that was worth, $8,000 to $10,000, and we made an exception on this one, and we wanted to do a lower commission rate, you could always choose a separate commission rate on a lot by lot basis as well. You don't have to charge the same thing to the same seller on every single lot within an auction. Lastly here we have lot fees. So those are primarily used for transfer fees when it comes to vehicles or registered items. We can go through that at the point that when you guys get your dealer's license. I can show you more about how that works, and we do have a bunch of pages in the knowledge base as well as far as assigning fees for a lot. And that would be one of the cases when you're selling a vehicle where it's not charged at the state rate, because we would actually add sales tax down here as a fee in the lot fee, because that actually is paid to the DMV or the DNR, not the Department of Revenue. So if that doesn't confuse you, I don't know what will. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'm going to jump back into our lot list, and we should see that we have our first lot created, lot 17, and it's going to show us most of those fields that were available on that last page. If I wanted to keep going and create lot 18 now, I can do it one at a time here. Just click on the new lot button, and away we go. A 10, 15, 20 lot auction, it's probably just as simple to create them one at a time, but we do have another way that you can create descriptions, and that's by using a spreadsheet. So we do have a template available. That I'll show you here. And I'll send you a link to this once we get off the phone here today. But instead of creating them one at a time, you just create them here on the spreadsheet template. and it has every field that we just went through as far as lot number, title, seller, description, item class, categories, starting price, reserve price, quantity, and is taxable. So instead of creating them one at a time in KBID, you would just say our title is truck for number 1, it's car for number 2, it's basket for number 3. You can see how this would save you a bunch of time, especially when you're getting into the 100 lot, 200 lot auctions. And you can copy and paste and do all that stuff that you can do in a spreadsheet.
So can you add the URL too for the pictures?
No, you can't upload photos this way.
Okay.
Through a spreadsheet. I'll show you that next.
Okay.
So I have our lots 1 through 16 created, and let's just go ahead and import those now. And how we do that is we just go to our import lots section here, and it's going to ask us to find our spreadsheet that we have saved on our desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and choose File, and I have my spreadsheet saved. I'm going to go Open and Upload, and we'll see here in a matter of seconds. It's going to say Upload or Import completed. See your log for details, and now down at the bottom, it's going to give us the details of that import. So if there was red on this page, we would know that there was an error, but it does not look like we have any errors, and it created 16 new lots for us. You'll also notice, I'm sorry?
I just lost everything. My computer went blank.
Oh, did it? Should I wait?
You're still on, right, Cash?
What the fuck's going on with that?
Yeah, my computer, I don't know what the hell happened. Just shut off altogether. Huh.
Maybe the battery died on it.
What's that?
The battery? Maybe that died on it.
No, it's plugged in.
Oh. Couldn't handle Chris, maybe.
Yeah, too much information.
Yeah, no,
You only knew a computer repair guy.
I know, right? Then you'd have all my passwords.
And your search history.
Yeah, we don't want to go there. If you're still on and you're keeping up, you guys can go ahead and I'll catch up when I get back in.
Well, just restart the computer. Just unplug the battery.
Oh, it's loading up now. It's
okay.
Just take.
All right, you won't miss a whole lot here in the next minute or two. So I'll just keep going, but I'll go a little bit slower.
Fine, go ahead.
The other option on this page, you'll see that there's an option here to import from another auction. So if you had a lot that didn't sell for whatever reason on a previous auction, you can import it into a new one. So you don't have to recreate it. You can always import previous lots into a future auction. Kind of a nice feature. If you have someone who didn't show up to pay, or you have multiples of the same lot, it's kind of nice that you don't have to recreate them.
That is nice.
All right, if we go back to our lot list, we will see that now it imported those lots 1 through 16 for us, and we have our lot 17 here as well. So you can see that you can mix and match the way that you create your descriptions. You can create some one at a time. You can create some via spreadsheet. Just be aware that if I had a lot 17 in that spreadsheet and I already created one manually, it would overwrite it. So just be aware of how that would work. Once we get these uploaded, I can always go into a lot here by clicking on the lot number and make adjustments to it as well. So you can always go back into a lot after you got it imported to make adjustments. And as far as the data in the spreadsheet, it's primarily a data transfer, so you're not going to get formatting coming across. You're not going to get a bunch of special characters coming across. So if you did want to use bullet points, you'd have to come back in and edit the lot after you got the spreadsheet uploaded.
Sure.
Now that we have those 17 lots created, you'll notice that there's a batch edit option as well. So we do have the ability to edit multiple lots once we get them created. So you can choose one or multiple or all, and you can make some changes up here. So you can change the starting price, reserve, is taxable, item class, fees, categories. This is where we assign our featured lots. So that's where those 5 featured photos come from.
Okay.
We select the 5 that we want, and then we choose those. We can also choose the seller, commission rate, and delete them as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and assign our seller. So let's just say that one seller owned all the lots in this auction. I can go ahead and upload, and there we go. They've been assigned, and their default commission rate is straight 20%. And that's all set for us.
So, Chris, what is a general rule of thumb? Like, say, if somebody asked me to come to their warehouse and do an auction, what is the general rule of thumb that people charge? I mean, I know it's our choice, but still, I want to know kind of what is the norm.
It's dependent on a lot of different factors, but when we were doing auctions, we rarely went below 15%.
Okay.
You're doing this to make.
But you're
money,
getting the 15% plus you're getting the buyer's premium too.
Yeah, and when we were doing our P&Ls for auctions, we didn't count buyer's premium as well as part of that. As far as our profit and loss, so that 15%, and we weren't doing small auctions either. We were,
right.
Our goal was to never do an auction under 20,000. That's kind of what we had to do with our staff, and what went into that. So primarily, what you're doing is you're going into a situation. You're trying to give a low end estimate of what the auction proceeds will be. So if you think it's going to be 20 grand, at the low end, possibly it's got 30 grand there. You're going to base your estimation off that $20,000 number. And these are things that you don't necessarily. It's hard to teach. It's just you kind of learn by doing. And then you certainly have to take into account what your expenses are going to be. So what we did is we assigned, 1 day of labor for staff was going to cost $200. So if we had, we knew it was going to take 4 days in order to get this auction cataloged and up and ready to go. So that's $800
sure.
right there.
Makes sense.
So you're trying to do that math on the front end, or when you're going through a sales call, and get where that profit margin or what you're hoping to make. And certainly you don't want to. You're doing this to make money. So that's why I say give low end estimates of your auction proceeds or what the auction will do, and then high end estimates of what your expenses are. And what you'll notice if you look around to the live auctioneers in your area, it is not cheap. People charge. It is a service, so you can't be afraid to charge. I mean, I've seen some pretty large auctions that are in 25 to 30% range.
Right.
So it's all about
Perfect.
making that seller comfortable and solving their problem for them. So hopefully we'll have some more trainings on that. We can't really give you a set schedule as far as this is what you should charge, but we can give you some more feedback and ideas as far as, this is what we do when we go into a situation to determine a commission rate.
Sure.
Hopefully that helped a little bit.
Yep.
So before we move on to the images, I want to show you just how you select your 5 featured lots. Pretty simple. You select your 5 lots that you want to show on the auction list. You go to featured, and you go to yes. And they'll be denoted here with a star. And then as the auction's live, you can always deselect. You can always change that, but what you'd have to do is, so I don't want lot 5 anymore. I have to go to featured, change that to no, update, and then
Okay, that's the features that we show the picture-wise, what we see on there.
Yep, that's on the auction list. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's always going to pull the first picture of that lot. So, all right.
Okay.
So is the description creation, that's all making sense so far?
Yeah.
Cool. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start uploading images. And how we do that is we just go to our Upload Images button here, and it's going to ask us to find the photos that we've taken. So I will add files. I have them already on my computer. Let's just grab these 5 photos that I want to upload. I hit open and then start upload. In a matter of seconds here, we'll have the Manage Images button down here. And this is where we manipulate and move images around. So it's going to show us that we have 17 lots created. But then on the bottom of this list, it's going to have an unassigned lot, because we just uploaded 5 random photos. It doesn't necessarily know which lots they go to. So at this point, we can just manually drag them to where they're supposed to be. There's a move button here as well. Or you can move all images. Okay. Yeah. Yep, you can move all images in the unassigned lot. So yeah, you can do this. You could upload 300 photos if you wanted to, and then just manually move them to where they're supposed to go. We do have another process for this that saves time on the back end and just kind of makes it easier, because it does become confusing when you have to remember, okay, where does lot 15 stop and where does lot 16 end, especially if you have similar items in an auction.
Right.
So what we'll do here first is we'll just always save this page once you're done moving things around. And if we quickly go to the preview, we should see that we have our 16 lots or 17 lots created, but only one should have images assigned, and that's lot 17.
Right.
So they have been uploaded. So perfect. And you'll notice that once you're within a lot here as well, you can always edit an item as well in the upper right-hand corner. So you can get back into that lot. And you'll also notice that once we've assigned images to a lot, they will show up here on the edit item page.
Okay.
You just can't upload images right now in this page, which would be kind of what you would expect. But eventually down the road, that will be an option. All right, so I'm going to show you the second way that we can upload images, and that's using a barcode system. So let's go ahead and try that. And what the process will be is we have these PDFs, or you generate these PDFs of barcodes. They can be from 1 to 500. And you actually print off those sheets, and the process is before you take your pictures of lot number 1, you take a picture of barcode 1. You move on to lot number 2, you take a picture of barcode 2, and so on and so forth. So between each lot, there's always a corresponding barcode for the lot that they belong in. And what this does is when we upload them, it automatically assigns them to the correct spot. So I'm going to choose these 16 here. Go ahead, hit open, and start the upload. And I will send you guys a link to that, to how to create those barcodes. You don't have to print these off for every auction. You can reuse them over and over and over again. You certainly don't have to use green paper like we have in this example, but that's just what we've done because it does make it a little bit easier to see and differentiate. But you'll see that it is one more picture on the front end, but on the back end it saves you a whole mess of time because you're not having to remember where each lot goes. So we'll give that a minute to upload. And as far as image size, do not go overboard. You don't need to go out and get a DSLR camera. We have to resize the images anyway to fit our thumbnails and in the system
Right.
itself. So pretty whatever the basics sizes are on your camera or your phone. You don't need to go overboard there, because that will it'll just take longer for you to upload images at that point. So you'll see now that I go into the Manage Images page, it automatically put these into the correct lots for us. So we'll see that our barcode for 1 here has been whited out. So the system recognized it as a barcode, and it automatically clicked this little button here that says Toggle Delimiter On. And that just means this lot's the barcode. Just leave it there as a placeholder. No one needs to see it. So when it's whited out, no one's going to see that image. You'll notice there's some other options here as far as manipulating photos. You can edit an image here, crop it as well. You can change them clockwise or counterclockwise. I showed you that the Toggle Delimiter On button just says that this image is a barcode. There's the Move option and also Copy, so you can move and copy an image if you want. And then lastly, there's a trash can to delete the image. You'll see here as well that these do upload in batches, and if I screwed up, uploaded the wrong images, I can start over and just easily delete the entire batch if you need to. So what I'd want to do, because this process isn't 100% accurate, is just do a quick spot check, make sure things are going into the right lots. So 3s with 3, 6s with 6, 8s with 8. And we'll see here in lot number 9, we have both the images for 9 and 10, and lot 10 here does not have any images assigned. So what I would do, and since there's already a barcode assigned within this lot, if I click on Toggle Delimiter On, it's going to denote that as a barcode and move everything behind it. Then all I would have to do is put in the correct lot number, so lot number 10, and when I save this page, it'll merge these two together for us. So I just want to make sure that they're on the correct lot. So here's another one, probably because the image is a little bit blurry, I could either hit that Toggle Delimiter On, or I could just as easily, there we go, move them down to the correct lot. And we want to make sure that this image isn't showing, that it's whited out, so I could either hit Toggle Delimiter On, or I could just delete it. So it's pretty accurate. If your pictures are good of the barcodes, certainly does help. But it's another one of those processes that you'll kind of learn by doing.
Right.
So I'm going to go ahead
Is
and
Rick
save
back
that.
on or no?
What's that?
Is Rick back on or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's been on for a while.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, I just didn't want to interrupt. I knew Chris knew that I was on, so.
One thing I want to show you here, if we go back to that Manage Images page, we can always get there from our lot list. If it's still saving in the background, first it's just going to give us this little notice here letting us know that. You'll also see that there's a little status bar here. And the reason that that's important is you wouldn't want to go through here and start making changes or edits because there's not a save button over here because it's still saving in the background. So just give that a minute or two before you get into this page and start moving things around, because if you do, you won't be able to save it. You'll just end up wasting your time. Usually goes pretty quickly.
Something up with my computer. This is the first time I've had these kind of problems with it. I'm going to... Yeah, it just shut off on me. It is plugged in. So I'm going to go in on a different computer. So you go ahead. I'll catch up.
Okay, we have like 5 minutes left. So, but what I'll do, if you don't get on, I recorded this one, so I can send you the recording as well.
That would be perfect.
Yeah, you can certainly go in and test it out. If you're like me, you probably just want to get in and start playing around with it. But I'll give you the video as well, so that'll be nice.
That'd be awesome.
All right. So now if I go to our preview, we should see that our descriptions and our pictures started matching up with each other, and our auction has been born. So we want to go through, make sure everything looks the way that we want it to. And if that was the case, you can also see that note section in the auction details that would show up here. We have our terms in here, directions, shipping information. So we'd want to make sure we check all of that. And if it was ready to go, all we'd have to do is go to the edit auction page and scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see a publish button. And like I said, at this point, you're still in an admin review, so it wouldn't actually go live just for the first month or so. But eventually, you'll be able to publish at any point, and the auction will go live. So that would be the last step. The auction's ready to go. You come into the edit auction page, hit publish, and it should be live and good to go. So that is about it as far as the auction creation. So at this point, what I'll do is follow up with an email that has a link to that video. I'll throw this up on YouTube. I also have a link to the barcodes and the Excel sheet if you want to practice with those. You can certainly add to this auction that we've created. You can create a new test auction, or you can start creating your first real auction. Go in, you can't break anything, so go ahead and test it out. See what works for you. There is no right way or wrong way to create an auction. You'll see there's multiple ways that you can do it. It's just finding the way that works best for you and is most efficient for you. So I'd say test out all the different functions and figure out what works best for you and is the quickest process.
Sure.
But otherwise, at this point, that's all I got for you.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, thanks.
We just have to play around with it.
Yeah, yep. And if you certainly, if you have questions, you can reach out to me. There's a lot of information in the knowledge base as well. The next time that we'll get together is when you have your first one ready to go. Barring any questions you have before then, and then we'll go through it together. I'll give you any recommendations that I might have, and then we'll get it live, and we'll kind of take it step by step from there. So, since there's so much information, I try not to overwhelm you with what all the back end stuff. So after an auction ends, we'll just do that as your first auction concludes, and we'll get that taken care of.
Awesome.
So that is that. You
all right.
be
Well, thanks so much.
well on your way.
Perfect.
Great.
We'll see
All right.
what we can do now.
We will talk to you guys soon.
All right.
Thanks again.
Take care.
You too. Bye.